Hello, welcome to another episode of the Menswear Style Podcast. I'm your host, Pete Brooker, and on this episode I'm going to be speaking to the CEO and founder of Myrqvist, Sebastian Öhrn. A little bit about Myrqvist. So, shoe brand primarily with Scandinavian minimalism at its heart. Their shoes are designed in the Swedish capital and they are manufactured with experienced craftsmen in Portugal. So Myrqvist, the website myrqvist.se. That's a lot to take in. We're going to put all the links over on the show notes, which will be over at menswearstyle.co.uk, along with all the other articles on fashion and competitions you can find over there. We're also on the social. Type in Menswear Style on your smartphone. We'll pop up there somewhere. And if you want to be on the show, if you want to get in touch, talk about your brand, then why not reach out info@menswearstyle.co.uk. Okay. Here is that interview with Sebastian Öhrn, CEO and founder of Myrqvist. Well, it's my great pleasure to introduce to the podcast Sebastian Öhrn, CEO and founder of Myrqvist. How are you doing today, Sebastian?
Not too bad. The sun is out. It's like 16, 17 degrees here in Stockholm, which is quite nice for Sweden.
Nice.
And, people are getting a bit more calm about the COVID situation.
Yeah, I was about to say, we'll get onto the brand Myrqvist in a minute, but I know Sweden is slightly different to the rest of Europe in terms of the COVID and the pandemic. So can you just give me the pulse of the nation in a nutshell?
Yeah, strangely it is. And I'm not sure why it's actually differing that much. But really today, like pretty much everyone was out. And this week we've seen a massive difference from just the week before. And I think... we haven't had the tight lockdown restrictions as you guys have, and it's kind of been discretionary, but a lot of people have been taking the responsibility and stayed inside. But I feel like this week people are getting back to the office. We see a lot of movement on the streets. People are sitting in restaurants and they go shopping. We had record sales for this month today, actually, in our physical store, which has been struggling a lot the past 6 weeks or so.
So let's talk about the store, the bricks and mortar store. You have one flagship store in Stockholm, if I'm correct, yeah?
Yeah, so we opened that one up in November, and parallelly we ran two stores because I had my first store almost in 2017. I started that one.
Right.
This is kind of like a transition. Now we closed down the little store conveniently just before Corona. So now we have one flagship store in Stockholm and focusing mainly online.
Let's talk a little bit about you first, Sebastian. What kind of education did you get, and what was it? Give me a thumbnail sketch. How did you get into launching this brand?
Well, kind of my background, I'm born and raised in Stockholm. Lived with my parents. I just grew up in a residential area just outside of Stockholm. But after high school, I went to study abroad in the UK, or in St Andrews to be exact, in Scotland. Mm-hmm. So I was there studying economics and management, kind of a business degree, for almost 5 years, 9 semesters. And I think it was during my penultimate year that I thought about starting Myrqvist, the footwear brand. And I did so remotely. So when we first launched Myrqvist, we did it on a Kickstarter. You're familiar with Kickstarter?
I am, and there's a great story on your site, but I'll let you regale that if that's all right.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, Kickstarter is basically like one of the major sites for crowdfunding. I'm not sure how popular it is nowadays, but at the time we did our thing. It was quite a hot thing to do. So what we did is that we created a video about this business idea that I wanted to sell high-end, handcrafted leather shoes for men, direct to consumer. And then we asked people to basically contribute with money in return for product at a 20% discount. So we didn't have to give any shares of the company away. We just, it was kind of like taking a large batch of pre-orders. And that gave us the funding to start the production and set up all the operations for our company, basically. And so we could launch the brand.
And you nailed your price that you set, right? I mean, you didn't just reach it and get over the line. You smashed it, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think we had the goal of 100,000 krona, which is like roughly 10K pounds. And I think we got almost 70K pounds. So that was 600 something percent up from our goal. I mean, I set the goal a little low just because I knew the momentum would be better if we like stretched our goal. But I mean, the real realistic goal was something like maybe like 20K. So we got a lot more traction than anticipated.
And how does that happen? Because let me tell you for a start, I've done multiple Kickstarter and crowdfunding campaigns. I've even done one for this podcast.
Oh, really?
My editor and I cobbled together an idea of having it sponsored for another series, and we put a pitch together, and just to get any kind of traction, even with our audience, was tough going. So tell me how the secret behind your success.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is tough, and a lot of people do the mistake of, I'm not saying I don't know about you guys, but like I know a lot of other people who think it's just like get on Kickstarter and you just get money by itself, but you really have to create a campaign outside your Kickstarter. So what we did is that we coordinated a lot of press, or mainly like online blogs at the time, like menswear blogs in Sweden, who simultaneously promoted our Kickstarter campaign on the date. And our goal was to create a lot of momentum in the very first hours, because that creates some kind of like herd mentality. So if you go into Kickstarter and you see a project that was just launched like a few hours ago and it's already picking up a lot of traction, you're more likely to get on the project than otherwise. You know, it's just this follow others mentality.
Right. Okay. It's a bit like a YouTube algorithm then. So if you release a video on YouTube, you've got to get a certain amount of number of hits and plays from the get-go. Otherwise, it kind of just gets buried and YouTube ignores it. But if you, like you say, the herd mentality, if you come out the gates charging, then people will soon latch onto it. And I guess momentum is key, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's all about getting the momentum.
Interesting. And so you secure the goal, you get the funds. What are the next steps from there?
Then we have to figure out how to get
the casino. Sorry.
Well, actually, we got a lot of problems because we had just anticipated like around shoes worth to 20K, and then we had to create like a supply that was 3 times that. So we really had to redo our production and switch factory twice, actually. So some of our backers in the very beginning, they got their shoes quite a bit delayed. I mean, we were terribly sorry for that, but we compensated them with some discounts and some socks. But most of them got it in time, luckily.
I mean, so talk a little bit about the brand, if you can. The inspirations for the designs. So designed in Sweden, manufactured in Portugal. What are the stepping stones that you need to get now in place to get this from concept to market?
Yeah, so after we launched the Kickstarter, the goal was to have our own sales channel, starting online. And what we wanted to do was really, it's not that much about the design, which it has grown into becoming, but at the time it was more about like great product, great materials at a great price. But I think what differs us from when it comes to the design is that we wanted to be somewhere like in between the Italian and the English aesthetics. Now we have expanded our array to have like different kind of last and shapes of our foot. But we started out with like one last, which is, and last is, for those who don't know, a last is what you make the shoe on and kind of defines the fit and the shape of the shoe.
Right.
And we wanted to create something Swedish because at the time we were the only Swedish brand for Goodyear Welted shoes.
Okay.
So really, I wanted to take like a traditional British product and create a Scandinavian brand and a Scandinavian take on that traditional handcrafted British product.
Maybe you can school me. A Scandinavian take on a British product. What inflections would a Scandinavian design have? What do they bring to the table?
Well, a bit less chunky, I would say, than the British, and a bit more, sleek curves and shape of the shoe. In addition to that, we've also added a lot of like different soles that can tackle the climate in Sweden. I mean, obviously there's a lot of wetness and rain in the UK as well, but we do have it here in Sweden, and we figure out that leather soles were not too popular, even though people really wanted like nice leather shoes. So we were quite early out with creating a so-called half rubber sole. So it's basically a classical leather sole, which has injected rubber into it, and then it's sewn on with the Goodyear Welted construction. And that gives you like more grip, but also the durability. Like you don't wear out the shoes as quickly as you otherwise would have. In addition to that, we've also done a lot of studded rubber soles, which are good for like when it's freezing, because in Stockholm sometimes or in the rest of Scandinavia, it can get quite slippery on the streets if it's sub-zero degrees. So you need like that grip to go to work.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. So we're fast tracking now, the year 2020, 3 years in business. What is your role within the company, and how do you now operate? How big is your team? What's your day-to-day like now?
Well, my role as a CEO and founder is, constantly pushing the business forward and ensure that together with the rest of the team that we grow and improve our product and business and all the aspects of the business. We're about 5-6 people now in the team, and so it's not huge, but we're in an expansion phase. And
when you say 5 to 6, do you mean someone's about to get fired?
No, it's not. It depends on how you count. Like we have people working in the store, and then we have like someone who's hired but hasn't started working yet. I would say like 5-6 people is a fair number. But no, so it gives me a wide variety of responsibilities because each person, including myself, have to manage a quite, wide spectrum of responsibilities. So I'm not just talking to our investors and the bank. Sometimes I have to jump into the store if someone's sick. I have to, be involved in the design process of the shoes. And what I do try to focus on is just, developing the business and coming up with new ways of reaching customers, engage with customers.
Interesting. And so let's talk a little bit about that. Let's drill down a little bit on how you can augment your outreach. Do you entertain the idea of influencers, social media? How have you used social media to leverage any traffic to the site?
I think social media, and then Instagram in particular, is a very important channel where you can engage and reach. However, I think social media can be used in a number of different ways, and influencer marketing is just one way. So, for example, now you see this trend about live shopping, etc. I don't know too much about that, but there's also paid marketing on social media. And when it comes to influencer marketing, it's not something that Myrqvist as a brand particularly relies on. So I think it's, first of all, that it requires a certain product and market fit to have influencer marketing as a scalable marketing strategy. So, for example, in Stockholm, there's just that number of menswear influencers who match our brand. Like you couldn't start collabs with anyone if you want to keep like the brand image at a certain, within certain boundaries.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we like our core customer group is, it's young urban professionals, not necessarily people who are menswear enthusiasts. Even though we have excuse me, I had a hiccup. Even though we do have menswear enthusiasts who like our shoes and products and, spread the word, it's like the bulk of our customers are young urban professionals, lawyers or bankers or consultants. And I think there are other more cost-efficient ways of reaching them.
And what would those ways be?
Well, you can still use Instagram and other social media platforms, but you create like your own advertising videos or campaigns, and then you pay them to be promoted. I just think that the influencer marketing strategy has been very popular in recent years, and now it's become a bit too expensive. We're at a level where it wasn't really like 7 years ago. For example, I don't know if you're familiar with Daniel Wellington in
the
Swedish
watch company, right?
So they were very successful and were really early onto the influencer marketing thing. And at the time, they could reach out to someone with like hundreds of thousands of followers and just offer them a watch for a post. And obviously for them, like, because they were so early into the game and they had a lot of opportunity with that strategy. But now that market has become somewhat saturated.
Yeah.
I still think it works for certain products and for certain type of influencers and markets and target groups. But I just don't think like a scalable influencer marketing strategy is something for Myrqvist.
Even if you mildly use Instagram, even if you're not an influencer, it can just be quite intoxicating, especially now with everybody at home with not a whole bunch to do but look at their phones. People are seeing that their likes are down. I mean, people are seeing just engagement drop because there's just so much option now. There's so many people on there actively producing content. All of us are our own publishers in a way. We're like all mini journalists documenting life. So to get anything really seen through the usual platforms that might have worked 3-5 years ago, it's a lot more hard graft now. Yeah,
you really have to break through the noise.
Yeah,
and I also think a lot of people are getting aware about. It's relatively easy to fake a lot on Instagram, and I think people are becoming more, cautious about like getting influenced.
How's the picture looking now for Myrqvist amongst this pandemic that's kind of taken a grip of, pretty much every economy and every business globally?
Yeah. No, I mean, this is really, for starters, no one's really shopping in our physical store, except for today. We had the turning point. Like today was good. And also, in general, the demand for our type of product is not very high when people just sit at home. If you're not out moving, you don't really need shoes. So demand is down, and that's tough. But we managed to get some sales online. But we had to change our offer a bit, like offering free home delivery and running some promotional campaigns. But it's definitely affected us. But I think we're in a good place because we're not too heavily reliant on physical retail. So our online store is still producing, enough cash for us to continue our operations as normal.
I encourage people to do the very thing you said there. Go and check out the website Myrqvist. I'm going to say myrqvist.se, but you told me off air that we're actually doing bits of changes where you can do myrqvist.com. And yeah. So, we'll leave all the show notes over on the website menswearstyle.co.uk, but you can also go to Myrqvist, Myrqvist, I guess, if people are uninitiated on how to spell Myrqvist. What does it mean, by the way, Sebastian?
Oh, it basically means. I mean, it's just a name that like sounds familiar to any Swedish name really. It's a composition of the word myr, which is sorry, I'm losing the word here. A swamp, basically a swamp, and then a wig.
A swamp wig.
A swamp and a twig.
A swamp twig.
Yes.
Okay.
But it basically comes out of the slang from, we have these lovely berries in Sweden called cloudberries. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
Yep, we put them in sloe gin. It's beautiful.
They're orange and they kind of look like raspberries.
Yeah, no, I'm familiar.
Yeah, and I think they might grow in the UK, but mostly they're predominant in Scandinavia, almost limited to Sweden. And I thought when I was creating this brand, I was on the swamp together with my grandma, where this berry grows, and I saw this beautiful, orange berry, and I thought it would be really nice to make something out of this. So now we changed our logo a bit, like the design of it. But initially, we actually had that cloudberry. And the Swedish slang for that cloudberry is myrberry, and then it became Myrqvist, which is kind of the plant on the berry grows.
Listen, every name has to be unique. Kodak means absolutely nothing. The guy that invented that, they said, why Kodak? And he goes, because it's easy. It starts with K, ends with K, and it sounds like you've already known it. Sounds like you've been saying it for years. So Myrqvist, There you go. It could be the next Kodak. Thank you so much for your time, Sebastian. Again, Myrqvist is a place to go. Instagram, your images are so clean. Crikey, what a beautiful page that is. I'm just scrolling through it now.
It's going to be better soon.
Well, I recommend people stop by and have a look to see how the brand is getting on, and how also to get some nice clean images of shoes. That's something I used to have to do in the day, was take pictures of shoes, believe it or not. And yeah, this is next level. Okay, the audio is getting just a bit choppy, so I'm going to let you go. But Sebastian, great talking to you. Best of luck with the brand, and hopefully you'll be making some noise here in the UK, and we'll be seeing some more collections coming to the site soon.
Thank you, Pete. Pleasure speaking to you.
Take care, mate. What a nice chap. Sebastian Öhrn there from Myrqvist. Myrqvist, check them out. Check out their lovely shoes. Also check out the site menswearstyle.co.uk if you want to find all the show notes and the imagery from the podcast, as well as all the other articles. And by the way, thanks for taking the time out to listen to this podcast. There are thousands of podcasts you could be listening to, but you're getting through this one. You're also reviewing, you're telling a friend. We love that. So until next time, remember, it's only fashion, people, and you're never fully dressed without a smile.